Get in on the action this season with Underdog's Pick'em game. Select higher or lower between 2 and 8 players and compete for up to 325 times your entry. Use code DIRECTOR when signing up to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the Director. Chargers fans, we're in for a game that I've very much so been looking forward to. As each passing week, it feels more and more like this may end up being some form of a revenge game. Crazy to think that about the Titans, right? But think about what some of the best Chargers, off-season acquisition players have been so far. Certainly, I don't think any stand above Elijah Molden, who's got, 3 interceptions this season, leading the team. He's been absolutely incredible in terms of trade value. We traded a 7th, round pick in 2026 for this guy, and he's been panning out beautifully. But we've also got guys like, Hassan Haskins, we got Tear Tart out there, Christian Fulton, who might be playing in this game as well. It feels like the Chargers took a bunch of project players that the Tennessee Titans had abandoned, forgotten, left in the rain, right? And resurrected their careers in LA. And boy, man, I'm sure they're very excited. Bud Dupree, too, by the way. I'm sure they're very excited to get out there and play their former team this week, which should create some awesome momentum for the Chargers going forward. But honestly, a pretty important game for the Bolts not to drop this week. You got to take a look at what's coming up afterwards. You got to take a look at what they have to offer in terms of what can create a trap game environment here. It's kind of a big one, if you ask me. So we're going to go over this game, all the ins and outs of it, and what to anticipate and what could be a revenge game scenario for the Chargers players, at least. Before we do kick things off, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog. Use code DIRECTOR to receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Newcomers take advantage of the CJ Stroud offer right here. Free pick right there. Definitely something to help support the channel and have some fun along the way. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub. If you do enjoy this Chargers content, small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification. Help me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action.
Who's got it better than us?
Into the end zone, Charger fans are witnesses to history!
Your Chargers versus Titans. Week 10? Where are we? Game preview. Man, this season's going by way too quick, man. Well, like always, we got to go over the laundry list of the injury report before we get into this one. And this one is definitely a little bit trickier to navigate. Of course, we're recording before the final is posted for the Chargers. But there's a lot of narratives in here that I do think spell for a lot of these Chargers to return, as well as some guys coming back. Like, I don't see DJ Chark on this list. Do you guys? Should be very interesting. Some of the guys to know right here. Joey Bosa, who I have seen practicing via, footage and images. I don't know how much of a workload he'll get, but I do expect maybe him to play in this game. Also, rumblings that the Khalil Mack groin injury from last week, maybe not as bad as we thought it was initially. Again, unspecified at all. This is all speculative at this point, but I would think that he probably does suit up for this one as well. Christian Fulton, this is also one that I actually don't really know. Hamstrings are really, really tricky, right? It's one that I really hope he does suit up for. Again, playing against his former team that, for lack of a better term, tossed him to the Wolves a little bit, would be an awesome narrative for this game. But again, we just don't know. Did not practice as well. Trey Pipkins, who, got a limited practice and then didn't practice on Thursday, is pretty interesting. Outside of that, we're all kind of waiting and seeing, right? Jasir Taylor, definitely hope that he suits up. Gus Edwards, by the way, back on the injury report, but off of IR. I would expect to maybe suit up this week as well, which, guys, a lot of people, I would say me included, don't fully appreciate the services of what Gus Edwards brings to the table. Gus Edwards is the hammer, man. Like, he'll go in there and soften up that defensive line and give, J.K. Dobbins some opportunities to break free. I like Gus Edwards. I'm hoping that his return sees some big play. Now down to the Tennessee Titans. Some guys already listed as out, just a few that are questionable. L'Jarius Sneed, as Chargers fans, we know this name on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a very good cornerback for now the Titans. He's already been labeled out for this game. Outside of that, you got Dylan, is it Radins? I forget how to say the name. I remember him in the draft process a couple years ago. He's going to be questionable with a toe injury. And then, of course, Julius Chestnut down here, the running back. So outside of that, though, it feels like a lot of these guys, we just kind of don't know what's going on. Is Simmons going to play? Probably. Is Pollard going to play? Probably. We'll have to kind of wait and see there. But yeah, there you go. There's the Chargers and Titans injury report for the week. Now let's get into our first topic of the video, and one that's actually super important. This is one that I think kind of flies under the radar for fans, me included, man. Like leading up to this game, I get a different perspective after I've kind of done some digging, right, on the upcoming matchup and opponents and a situation. Like I like to play this this channel off as a fan for the most part, just having fun with it and seeing what happens and creating, speculation and conversation that I would with my friends at the bar. You know what I mean? But when I sit down and do the research and I take a look at the situation, it does change my perspective just a little bit. And the one that I think was most evident to me in researching this video was the must-win narrative of this game. Yeah, the revenge game narrative is pretty exciting. The Chargers going up against another 2-6 team does put us, probably favorable in a lot of people's minds for this matchup, but it's a tricky one once again. Like, this is a pretty big game that the Chargers just have to win. You cannot drop this game. The Cardinals game kind of felt like one of those games where I was like, okay, I think we got a good shot at it. Let's go in there and take care of business. And the Chargers ended up dropping that one. I don't want to see another situation like that this week because of just how important it is to take care of business now before the season starts revving up a bit. And what I mean by that is that the last few weeks in terms of strength of schedule for the Chargers have been a bit lenient in my opinion, right? Not the toughest dudes out there. I should say the toughest teams out there in terms of competition. Of course, the last few games have played Cleveland, who's more or less been pretty bad. New Orleans, who's been collapsing. Arizona, of course, who we lost to, they've been okay. And then Denver, right? The schedule is about to rev up big time after this week. And again, I don't like looking too far ahead with the game right in front of us, but this is why this game is so important. After we face Tennessee, the schedule is going to look like this. I think it's the Cincinnati Bengals, right? The week after that. Then we got Baltimore, Atlanta, Kansas City, Tampa Bay. Like, it's about to get real out here. And if the Chargers have any shot at creating momentum going into those matchups, they don't just need to win this game. They need to win this game in a way that generates some momentum. If they somehow drop this game, man, it's going to make those matchups a lot tougher. The Cincinnati game, we just saw Joe Burrow go nuclear, right? He's going to be very fired up this week and next week after that loss to Baltimore. You guys see how that game ended? Wild, dude. You guys remember how mad I was with the officiating versus Arizona? Again, I don't hate Arizona in any way, shape, or form, but the officiating that game sent me off. I would feel exactly the same way if I were a Cincinnati Bengals fan after that game. And I'm sure that Joe Burrow does as well. So that's going to be a tough game. Baltimore, of course, the Harbaugh is going to be a tough game. We have got to make sure that we handle our business this week. Do not let this turn into a trap game because the next, 3-4 matchups could very well hinge on the shoulders on what happens this week. And the Chargers just got to straight up take care of business, right? It's a 2-6 team. They are very much so not in playoff contention in my mind. Like, we got to go in there. We got to take care of business. Do not let this turn into a trap game. It could derail what is an awesome so far season for Jim Harbaugh in his debut year with the Chargers. Okay? Next up. This topic is an interesting one, and it's one that kind of, it confused me the more I looked into it. Okay? If there's one thing the Titans got going for them, it's probably their defense. In this segment titled Battle of Dominant Defenses, right? You wouldn't think that, right? The Chargers, obviously, right? That's all I've heard about this season, just how amazing the Chargers defense is, how much they've been overperforming in some people's minds. But just honestly, how amazing they've been in terms of scoring, right? They have been just so good. League best, right? League best. The Titans on the other side, though, they are also a league best in the NFL in terms of their defense. A sneaky good defense, right? Allowing the league's fewest yards per game. Is that the stat right? 269? 269. That's a passing and running combined. The fewest in the NFL, right? That's something the Chargers got to pay attention to this week. That's actually pretty crazy to think that the Tennessee Titans of all teams are holding that metric and that crown in Tennessee this week. Or this season. Crazy. They allow just 155 yards per game through the air and 113 yards per game on the ground, which is certainly not a lot. Of course, Maybe a little bit more on the ground would be nice, but that's not too bad. Passing is definitely interesting, considering that they've played guys like Josh Allen, Jordan Love this season. So that is something to pay attention to, right? However, a big caveat to that metric, in my opinion, is that they've also allowed, and this is going to blow your mind. Like, I was looking at this like, how is this possible? They've also allowed the 6th most points per game in the NFL. The top league, or the top team in the league in terms of yards per game, also gives up the 6th most points. How does that work? What are you doing, Tennessee? How are you accomplishing this? That's wild. Now, on the other side, of course, we know the Chargers defense, amazing. The best scoring defense in football, allowing a mere 12.6 points per game. To the Titans, 24.6 points per game. Isn't that crazy? The other stat speaks to that metric as well for the Chargers in terms of the lowest points per game, allowing just 195 yards per game through the air and 107 yards per game on the ground. So the Chargers, very good defense overall. Doesn't allow any points pretty much every single week. And on the opposite side, you got the Titans, who allow the fewest yards per game, but also allow a lot of points. And in the end, what does this mean? Right? It's confusing. It really is confusing. But what does this mean? Well, I do expect this game to be a little bit more defensive dominant than maybe other weeks. Of course, I thought last week was awesome with the defense. The defense obviously has been just so good this season. And again, having a defensive day, by all means, that's fine by me. Let's go. Let's do it. The defense has been just about as fun to watch as the offense this season, or maybe even funner. It's been the craziest defensive season I've seen for the Chargers in a very, very long time. And going up against a team like the Titans, you would expect them to squash them. But the Titans also have a bit of a defense too, which is something to pay attention to. Right? The Titans' defensive metric, the fewest yards per game, that did intrigue me. It confused me a little bit. And I think it helped me come to the conclusion that I think the Chargers are raring up to provide Justin Herbert with some of the best field position that he's had all season. That's kind of like one way it kind of worked out in my mind. I didn't go through and watch every game and see the whole situation. No, I just kind of guesstimated it. If teams aren't putting up a crazy bunch of yards, but they're also putting up a bunch of points, they have to just be giving up the craziest field position, every other possession to the opposite team, right? And that's probably why I think the Titans allow so many points and so few yards. I think they're turning over the football on offense, and I think the defense is just, or I should say, the offense is just getting some great field position over and over in terms of opponents for Tennessee. Okay? Now, what about the Chargers defense against Titans offense, right? What situation are we looking at here? Well, this is where the beauty comes back, man. I would say the most meme-worthy quarterback we've seen in years making his return. Okay, we saw in the injury report, no Will Levis this week, which, by the way, if you guys didn't know, Will Levis hasn't started. I don't know if it's been 3 weeks or so, but it's been Mason Rudolph the past few weeks. And honestly, if you're a Titans fan, you can help me, educate myself here a little bit, but it feels like Rudolph has not been quite as bad as they thought he would be. Yeah? I feel like last week versus the Patriots, which they won that game, he looked pretty decent. Well, it feels like Will Levis is back this week, and that I think more than likely he's going to be starting. I don't know. I actually don't know the situation there, but I would expect that if Will Levis is back, that he will be starting. And that is kind of music to my ears. Because it makes me feel like this game is shaping up to be a turnover fest. And that's something Chargers fans have grown to love in watching our defense this season, right? Will Levis is a great way to create an environment where you're going to see more of that. Again, music to my ears seeing Will Levis back potentially as the starter. That's because Will Levis, and again, I didn't really even look much at Mason Rudolph. He's also thrown some interceptions and stuff as well. But Will Levis in particular, man, this dude has thrown an interception in every single game he's played this year. He's thrown multiple games that he's played this year. I think he played, 5 games this season, and he's thrown 7 interceptions. 7! He threw 2 apiece to the Bears and the Packers this year, which those teams, if you want to look at what they have in common, they both have a pretty decent pass rush. Green Bay actually sacked him 8 times in that matchup, and that creates, a nice environment. If you got good, pressure and the sack numbers are good, those quarterbacks are going to start throwing ducks. We saw it last week with Jameis Winston. The Chargers, Jameis, prior to playing the Chargers, the previous game, he had 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Then he goes and plays the Chargers, and he throws 3 interceptions. I don't remember how many yards. I don't think that many. I'm foreseeing something pretty similar here in Tennessee with Will Levis, who is already kind of struggling this season, especially versus teams with pretty decent pass rush. The Chargers, when you take a look at their pass rush versus the teams that Tennessee has played so far this season, well, this could be the scariest pass rush that they have faced all season long, man. And that's with us not really knowing what's going on with Bosa and Mack, which I'm assuming that they're going to play in some way, shape, or form. But I'm actually kind of honestly hoping to see a bit more Bud Dupree this week, too. Bud and Thule. This is kind of a revenge game for Bud as well, right? Not to mention just, edge position. That definitely is very important. But Jesse Minter's defense has been, rushing from all sorts of players and positions this year, man. He's been just incredible at generating, pressure, providing opportunities for turnovers, and just overall resulting in the number 1 scoring defense in the NFL. But in terms of rushing, you've seen Derwin, Lohi, Fox, I know a couple of times already. Bud, of course, he's got, I think, 3 sacks on the year so far, which is kind of crazy. Got Matlock, Thule. Yeah, there's a lot going on. A lot going on in there in terms of the pass rush, and I have a feeling that this team who gave up, I think it was 3 or 4 sacks to the Bears, 8 sacks to the Packers, is going to see a bit of struggle here versus the Chargers, who have maybe Bosa Mack. We'll have to see at what capacity, but also Thule, Bud, Fox, these other guys. It's going to, again, create this beautiful, perfect storm in which you got the meme quarterback back. You got, a turnover environment that's just, flourishing. You got a secondary for the Chargers that has been performing just so well with guys like Elijah Molden, ex Titan, maybe Christian Fulton out there. We're hoping to see him, but Tariq Still, Cam Hart, like these guys are just so good this season, and they're already complimenting established stars like Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, right? Like, it just feels like the environment here, the good pass rush, the already struggling Will Levis, and the really good secondary with, a few Titans out there on defense is going to make life pretty interesting for Will Levis this week. And I'm pretty confident for that he's going to turn the ball over at least once, if not a couple of different times. Especially now you got Tierra Tart and stuff screaming at him too. I don't know. It should be very interesting. I'm excited for this one. Welcome back, Will Levis. Excited to watch you throw the football on Sunday, baby. All right, next up. What about the quarterback on the other side, Justin Herbert? Well, I would say that the narrative is completely different on this side of the football. Herbert has been an absolute roll, man. I've been kind of poking around, looking for, metric statistics to kind of blow your guys' mind. And I got a couple of them out here, man. How's he going to do versus the Titans in particular, though? Well, we already know the Titans have a pretty good defense, right? In terms of yardage. Is it going to be one of those weeks that Justin Herbert maybe takes a back seat? I don't know. Only 3 players have thrown for over 200 yards versus the Titans this season. That was Drake May, who's up and coming, right? Reminds some people a little bit of Justin Herbert. Josh Allen, who's also kind of got that archetype. And then, funny enough, Malik Willis, right? I don't know if I said Jordan Love earlier, but Malik Willis was the one that played in that game. He's also got a bit of an arm too, right? That's kind of funny that those 3 in particular quarterbacks are the ones that they struggled against, because I feel like Justin Herbert's the king of all of that. Maybe not Josh Allen. That's definitely debatable. But they struggle versus quarterbacks with big arms. That's all I'm saying, man. That's all I'm saying. And it feels like Justin Herbert, man. I feel like I fully expect his name to be added to that list of players that throw for over 200 on Tennessee. Herbert, mind you, if you take a look at his first 4 games starting this year, he threw for just 578 yards combined in his first 4 games. That doesn't feel right. As Chargers fans, we're losing our minds. Like, oh my God, what happened to Justin Herbert? Well, now let me spill out what has happened in the last 4 games, right? So the first 4 games, 578 yards combined. In the last 4 games that he's played, Justin Herbert has thrown for a combined 1,147 yards. Well, how do you do? That's about double. That's just about double the yardage that he threw in the first 4 games of the season in these last 4 games. And I really honestly think, man, there's an obvious shift happening here on offense. There's this real, hard-nosed, running the football mentality that we saw the first 4 weeks. It wasn't working. They go into the bye week, week 5, and that's when the switch flipped. It's the Justin Herbert show again. And we're seeing some awesome numbers on offense all of a sudden because of it. And I feel like that ain't going to change. So far as it's working, Jim Harbaugh's going to keep it rolling. With Greg Roman, mind you. That's awesome. That's awesome. The shift has been great. It's been all Justin Herbert. His chemistry with his weapons has been finally blossoming, right? These are young guys. Quentin Johnston, Ladd McConkey, even, Josh Palmer, maybe not as much, but you know what I mean? Like, these are kind of fresh. Simi Fehoko was one of them, which, by the way, he's on IR right now, which kind of sucks. Him and Junior Colson got added this week, which is definitely a bummer. But I do think the Chargers will be able to survive that with the awesome depth that they've had this season outside of offensive line. Anyway, the chemistry is now there, I would say, with these young wide receivers, and the confidence, in my opinion, is completely back with Justin Herbert. He's looked awesome these last, 4 weeks. When Herbert gets hot, dude, I don't care how good your defense is in terms of yards per game. I don't care, what you've got cooked up for number 10. He is scoring this week. Justin Herbert, that momentum feels like it's gotten going, and I don't know if there's anyone that's going to stop it anytime soon, man. It's going to be another good Justin Herbert week. I'm anticipating it. I'm excited for it. And again, I think he's going to have himself an over 200-yard day again, even versus this Titans defense that does not allow that many yards through the air. What was it again? 155 yards through the air per game. I think we're going to see a bit more Justin Herbert this week. All right. Last couple of things before we wrap up this video. Like we mentioned, Justin Herbert and his young weapons finally establishing some momentum here, some chemistry. I do once again expect this to continue, but this week is especially special. And I thought it was going to be last week. All right. I'm going to go ahead and say, I guess I'm hoping that it's this week. We have to assume this is the DJ Chark week, right? He wasn't on the injury report. He was activated a few weeks ago. I think it's finally time. He was even catching passes from Herbert on the sideline, last week before Cleveland. We kicked off in that game. I would have to assume this is the DJ Chark game, which, again, just like I said last week, because we all thought it was last week, right? Just like I said last week, I do expect that to have an impact on the young receivers that we're already seeing some awesome stuff from here at this midpoint of the season. Ladd and Quentin Johnston, who you can say both had breakout games these last 2 weeks. QJ was last week. Ladd was the week before. Chark is going to come in here, man, and really help elevate both of these guys. And it's for the simple reason that the Chargers, outside of these last couple of weeks, have not really had deep perimeter threat wide receivers to keep defenses from playing too low, right? They've all been playing low. Chargers just didn't really have those guys to stretch the field quite as much. Lately, they've been improvising. It's been working beautifully with QJ and Ladd. But now they've got a guy who's kind of built for that sort of thing in DJ Chark. And Chark, man, what he offers this offense is in my opinion, base. Right? You get him to stretch the field a little bit. You're going to see some more opportunities on the outside for J.K. Dobbins to find a really nice block from Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater and hit some extra space on the outside. I think a little bit is that, a space provided by the wide receivers, the blocking of these wide receivers, by the way. I think you're going to see some underneath work available for Ladd and QJ, who will kind of specialize in and around that part of the field, generate some yards after the catch. Like, you're going to see a little bit more of that open. Maybe Kamani Vidal, from the backfield in terms of his receiving ability. Like, it feels like Chark was kind of the key to help unlock a lot of this. And I'm really hoping that we see that this week. Even if we don't, we do, whatever. I do expect some good things from Ladd and Quentin Johnston. Again, the yards may not be as copious as they normally are just because of that metric from the Titans, which is extremely confusing. But I don't think it's going to stop him from making some big plays. I think Justin Herbert's going to continue showing us that he's got confidence and he's comfortable in these guys and trust in these guys. The kind of trust that I was used to seeing him throw to number 13 and Keenan Allen for so many years. Now with Ladd McConkey is feeling interesting. And Quentin Johnston, on these big plays that he used to trust guys like Mike Williams on, it feels like it's starting to really settle in, which is definitely great. And DJ Chark added to that equation. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. All right. So finally, what does this all lead up to? Score prediction for the Chargers, which, by the way, again, excited to see a little bit more Gus Edwards this week. I'm hoping that he's 100% good to go. With all this in mind, two defenses battling it out. The Chargers offense getting a little bit hot, right, at the right time in a game that they got to put away properly. With a Will Levis return that could provide some additional turnovers for the Chargers. I'm going to go ahead and say the Chargers win this one, and that this is probably the more shocking part for me. I got the Chargers winning this one, 30 points scored on this one. Let's go out there and score 30 this week, baby. 30 points to the Titans' 6. I was very tempted to pull that load to 3. I think it's absolutely possible. The Titans have not been a good scoring offense this year. Will Levis is probably not going to help that too much. I got the Chargers winning 30-6, really spelling out the kind of win that this week needs to be. Can't just be, hey, let's go out there and survive. Let's make it to week 10, 11, I don't know, the next week versus Cincinnati. But let's go and really, really take care of business versus a 2-6 Titans team and generate some momentum for future matchups. I think that's especially important this week. But you guys in the comment section, let me know some of your score predictions, some of the players that you're excited to see this week, and how you think the Chargers defense is going to fare versus Will Levis this week. Got to watch out a little bit if you guys are watching for like legitimate threats versus the Chargers defense. Tony Pollard can definitely be a problem. Calvin Ridley has kind of stood out in the past couple of weeks, but I don't know how much it's going to matter versus the number one scoring defense in the NFL. And we're hoping that trend does continue this week. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Give me 3 interceptions this week, man. I think I'm ready to see 3 interceptions versus Will Levis.